All right. We are so excited for everyone to be here. We want to welcome you to our Tiger Talk hosted by Parent and Family Services. My name is Heather Hampton, and I get the honor of serving as Senior Coordinator for Parent and Family Services. And we have some very special guests with us today. We have the Educational Support Program staff here with us to talk about how you can help your student have academic success. And so we're going to hear from them and all the wonderful things they have and answer some questions that you all may have. But before we get started, we do want to make sure that you please put your microphone on mute. That way we can keep the noise to a minimum and hear what they have to say. And then if you have any questions, as the session goes on, please feel free to type those in the chat and we will make sure those questions get answered during the session. So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, I would like our speakers for today, Dr. Barbara Beckes, who is the coordinator or assistant director for the Educational Support Program, and also Dr. Sarah Marshall, who is here as well. I would like them to introduce themselves and just tell a little bit about what they do, what their role is in educational support. And then I have a little fun question I'm going to ask them. So I'll give you all the floor to introduce yourselves at this time.
Thank you, Heather, for inviting us today. I'm so glad to speak to the parents and all the family members and friends of the students that are here. So in Educational Support Program, we are part of Student Success Division, and that focuses on students' retention and graduation. And what's most important from my point of view is that we have teamwork among our staff, and our staff is all very student-centered with an understanding of what the college experience really is. And our main focus is meet the students where they are. And we look forward to meeting your students if we haven't already.
Hi, I'm Sarah Marshall. I am an academic tutor and learning specialist with ESP. My job is to work directly with students and to provide educational opportunities for them to further their academic success. I work both on the ground in the Academic Enhancement Center, which is one of our learning centers, as well as online on our virtual tutoring platform, which is called Upswing, and I'm sure we'll go into more detail about that later. But my primary goal is to, as Dr. Beckes put it, meet the students where they're at and to help them meet their academic goals.
All right, so it sounds like you all do a lot, and we appreciate all the work that you do to help our students. So the question I have for you both is just a little fun question. So when you're not helping students, what is your favorite thing to do around town to kind of relax or have fun?
Okay, guys, be ready for my answer. My fun thing to do is go to Dollar Tree and maybe GW, okay? And if you're not sure what GW is, it's Goodwill, okay? And so, and then the other part is go eat supper on the porch. And I'm talking about my porch because after a full day of working with students, I'm very, very happy just to go, ah, that's me, you all, that's me.
I think my favorite thing to do around town, I mean, similar to Dr. Beckett, anytime that I can just get away and do something for myself is really wonderful. So I think my favorite thing is to go to Shelby Farms and walk with my greyhound. Her name is Diamond. So, I definitely like that animal time. They say it increases your dopamine. So that's one of my hacks for the students as well.
That's really cool. Sounds like Dollar Tree is a lot of fun, or what do they call it now? $1.25 tree. And also Shelby Farms, which is one of one of the I think it's been voted one of the best or biggest parks in the United States. It's a lot of fun things to do out there. So those are really cool. I might have to join you all a little bit there. So we'll go ahead and get started. Family members have submitted questions ahead of time, and we also have compiled some questions just as a staff. And so we'll go ahead and jump into those questions. And I just want to remind everybody that if you do have a question, feel free to type it in the chat, and I will be monitoring the chat so that I can make sure that your question gets answered by Dr. Beckes or Dr. Marshall. So the first question that we have, and this is a really popular question, is there a fee to use the tutors in educational support program?
The only fee is to use the rubber on their shoes and come on in. All right. So there's no other monetary fee at all for on-ground contacts with us or online contacts with us. So we think we're a pretty good deal.
That's an amazing deal. Free is always good. So before you go out and try to pay for a tutor, please have your student check out educational support where that they don't have to worry about a fee or anything. That's awesome. So are appointments required? And if they are required, how can students go about scheduling an appointment so that they can receive your services?
So yes, appointments are not required for on-ground contact with ESP through the learning centers. However, online tutor sessions, appointments are made, and they can make it through memphisupswing.io, which most of the students are quite familiar with because they simply log into their University of Memphis homepage and everything is right there.
Cool. So I heard Dr. Marshall mention learning centers. And so what are learning centers and how can a parent, student take advantage and benefit from that?
So learning centers are locations that we provide. They are a safe environment for academic focus. We are actually in one of the learning centers. This is the Academic Enhancement Center, which is located in Mitchell Hall. We have learning centers all over campus that specialize in different topics. And we also have Tigerland computers and printers in some of our learning centers, so students can utilize that resource as well if they have to print off a paper or they want to print off their lecture slides ahead of the lecture to take notes on. They can come by and do that as well. But we really love to tell students to just come in here, even if they don't have a question. It's a really great environment for focusing on their work and just kind of getting into a routine and having a place to come and really focus and get to work.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great place for students to come. And it's always good. Sometimes you may not be able to focus well in your dorm or hanging out with your friends necessarily. So that's great that there are places that they can come to on campus. Even if they don't need help, they can just come and enjoy the environment. A parent read on you all's website that you offer supplemental instruction. What is supplemental instruction? Is that the same as tutoring or is that something different?
So supplemental instruction is what we do when we're tutoring because we're offering additional support to the student for the content that they're learning in each one of their courses. And so whether a student would choose to go to Academic Enhancement Learning Center, Business Learning Center, Math Learning Center, Science Learning Center, or Centennial Place Learning Center, all of the tutors are there to provide additional support. Now, all of our tutors are currently enrolled students. They have taken the courses that the students will be requesting. And when students come to see us, we actually change their title. We say they are learners because they vote with their feet and they come and they show up. And while they're here with us, wherever the here might be, we believe they have to see it, say it, and do it. So it's not going to be a repeat of lecture. It is going to be what do we need to do in order to make sure that we know the material and that we have learned the material so that we can see how to apply it, because that's usually where students have some difficulty is in applying what they've learned in class. So we would try to look at that part as well.
I really like that SSD. See, say it, do it. See it, say it, do it. That's something good to remember. So, does your department, if a student happens to come and utilize your services, do you all typically let students, professors know that they have come to receive assistance, particularly if they're struggling in a certain class? And if not, do professors sometimes check in with you to, like, if they referred a student to you, do they say, did so and so come to see you? How does that work with you all and just maintaining connection with the students' professors?
So first of all, your student can get a printout of the time that they spend in a learning center because it might be something they would like to put on the refrigerator at home so you can see what they're doing, at other times. Professors can request information about their students for their section, but when that does happen, usually the professor has said to the class, they will be able to get that information because sometimes students need to have the nudge to know, oh, it might be impressive if my professor knows that I've actually been to the learning center. But we had the attitude that when a student does make an improvement on something, that the professors are just going to assume that that student has been to the learning center. And so that's a good thing. So when students have the opportunity to do better in a class, like their professors sent, alerted others to alert the student that they could do better, then those students do receive text messages and emails that actually refer them to tutoring, refer them to the learning center. And we think that is extremely positive because it's very collaborative. Now, um, it it's up to the professor whether they ask us for information, but the only information we would ever give is time in, time out. That's it, because what happens here, it's up to the student. It's up to what they, choose to do when they're here. However, there are many programs at the university and many MANY, both student organizations as well as departments who want some data on which representatives from their organization or their college did come to see us, because that represents involvement, engagement, and also can be a very influential fact as far as this overall population of students and their GPA average. So it's not by individual students, it's a group report of said number of students from this particular area. And this is, they came this many hours, this many times or something. We do know, but there's some other data, but Dr. Sarah will give that in a minute, okay?
Sounds good. So we've got a question in the chat, a couple of questions actually. How does ESP help a student who has selected a major but doesn't have a strong background in the courses that that major will require? Is there some type of guidance that you can give the student?
We always refer students to their advisor when it comes to making choices for what courses they're going to take and their major. But we also confer with students on what courses they're taking. And for those prerequisite courses, we often offer tutoring in those prerequisite courses. So if they need some support in those, especially for like health sciences, pre-nursing, those type of courses, chemistry, anatomy and physiology, the biology, we offer tutoring for those. We also offer tutoring for all of the general education courses, the languages. So most of the prerequisites that would be required for any particular major, we are offering tutoring in those courses.
And it goes back to, we work with students where they are. And so we can identify when we know that we need to have some skill building, and it's our job just to give them feedback. We got to work on this in order to get that. So that's important for us to know too.
Yeah, that's great that you all take the students through that process. Another good resource on campus of course, talking to your advisor, and then career services, they have some services that will help the student to kind of look at their strengths and areas where they are strong as far as personality wise, their interests, and some of that can also play into making sure that they, are going into the major that they really want to do for a lifetime career. So I applaud you all for having that type of relationship with the students. It's definitely beneficial. The second question that has come in the chat: how long does a tutor session typically last?
That is up to the student. So student comes in, they tell us what they want to work on, and we say how much time you have, and okay, let's see what we can do within that period of time. We find that 30 minutes is a very valuable length of time, but then a student needs to kind of work individually to make sure that they have the material, not just that we talked it to them. But the length of time depends upon what learning center they go to, what the topic is, what the background needs to be, where they are as far as getting their understanding of the concepts and the course requirements. It varies. It varies on ground. Online, Dr. Sarah, you might say something about how long an online session might be.
Normally, online sessions are between 30 minutes to an hour. So, we normally keep those a little bit more brief just because we don't have all of the added sensory experiences that help integrate knowledge like we do in the classroom. And it's a little bit harder to kind of leave the student to do independent work and then come back to them like we do in our on the ground learning centers. But the good thing about online or virtual tutoring is that the student can make as many appointments as they want. So we might have an hour here and then they come back another time the next day, that sort of thing. So we do, although the formatting is different, we still try to emulate the same type of learning approaches that we do on the ground.
Cool, cool. So some students tend to wait until it's too late to seek help. What are some early warning signs that parents and family members should look out for as they talk to their student or check in with their student throughout the semester?
So some of the early warning signs of your student having trouble with their classes might be poor attendance or low in test and quiz performance. However, because your student is now an adult, they may not share that information with you. So I would say if you notice any change in behavior in your student, that is a red flag and you should try to communicate with them about it and see what's going on. Um, you know your student well. So if they are doing something that is not in their norm, that should be, a tip that something's up. Also, if they normally are communicative with you and they begin to be unwilling to share with you what's going on with them, that's another thing to look out for. So I would say that you should think about how your students talking about their classes and their academic work, and try as much as you can to keep the lines of communication open with your student. Give them lots of empathy and support. Your student is now an adult, so trying to maintain that respectful, helpful, kind of supportive role with them while empowering them to seek out resources that can be helpful to them is probably your best bet. You can always reach out to us as well. We, because of FERPA, cannot report back to you whether or not your student has been here directly. As Dr. Beckett's mentioned, your student can print off their report and tell you and show you that they've been here. But if you reach out to us and tell us that you have a concern and you want your student to come in, we can reach out to your student and talk to them and encourage them to come in as well. So that's always an option.
That's awesome. Another question that family members had, do you have any special services that you provide students who have a documented learning difference, or a student who is registered with our disability resources for students? Do you partner with them to help students in that aspect?
My background is in special education, and I am a big proponent of universal design, which means that we teach students according to using techniques that benefit students of all learning differences, strengths and challenges alike. With that being said, however, we do collaborate with Disability Resource Services, and we take referrals from Disability Resource Services, and we refer students to Disability Resource Services. So sometimes if we have a student come in and as a learning specialist, I'm noticing that they might have a learning difference that goes beyond just your average, strengths or challenges in learning. I might consider asking them whether or not they had an IEP in high school or something like that, or referring them to DRS for further testing. Similarly, our coordinators at DRS will often reach out to us and say, we have a student here and they would like some more support in reading comprehension, and they'll refer them to me. So we do work closely with DRS.
Perfect. So you kind of answered this a little bit earlier, Dr. Marshall, but what questions should a parent ask their student to get an idea of how they're doing in class? Are there certain trigger words that should be thrown in there, just to kind of give parents an idea if they're not sure of how to go about starting that type of conversation?
I think Dr. Beebe would love to answer this one.
I would start out and say, tell me something you don't like about that class, okay? And they'll likely tell you what they don't like about that class. But then what you really want to get to is teach me something that you're learning in your class. So if the student is able or is willing to tell you about what they're doing in class, you can actually hear a lot and read between the lines as to how things might be going. You might also just ask them, to tell you about the deadlines. What do you have coming up? What do you have before the end of the semester? And then if you keep a calendar or they have a calendar, they'll share with you. That's, good hard copy is great. But then encourage them to keep their calendar on their phone so they get reminders, of when things are going to be due. And we encourage students also, and your student better than we do, they should start on any assignment as soon as it's given, not the night before it's due, because if the intent is, it kind of helps the student have evidence ahead of time whether or not they're getting the information that's going to be needed to show what they know and really to show that they are doing well. And then another just general question, have you ever been to your professor's office hour? Take a friend with you, or just ask when those are, or even what building do you have that class in? And I really think it's important for parents to know their students' schedules so that you do not call during class time. Do not call during class time, because that is disruptive to everybody in the class when your student has to get up and go take a phone call. And it also interrupts the learning that should be taking place. And so we like to make good impressions on the professor and encourage our young people to do the very, very same thing. So you can tell that Dr. Sarah and I probably got some ideas that are, one or two maybe off the wall, but I'll stand behind some of my thoughts.
I will say as well that when it comes to, especially if you have a traditional student, so they just finished high school and are starting college, teenagers can be a little bit, keep things close to the chest a little bit sometimes. So trying to have a conversation with them face to face directly can be a surefire way to have them shut down, depending on your student. But one way to try to get them to talk a little bit more is if you are out for a walk or you're driving somewhere and they're kind of stuck in the seat next to you, but you're not face to face, you're kind of in between songs on the radio or something. So just kind of casually bringing up a question here or there can help kind of draw them out a little bit and not make it feel like they're sort of, in the interrogation room, if you will.
Right. And Dr. Beckes, you actually touched on this a little bit. The next question that we've gotten from a family member: my student seems to know the material, but has trouble keeping up with assignments and managing their time. So what advice would you give this parent for them and their student and working with their student to help kind of build some of those time management skills?
So
We, s-
we don't believe that one answer fits all. And so we really think that the answers will vary, on what advice to give and what to do based upon what your young person is studying, what it is, in what they're majoring. But we do know that all of us need to be planful, and being planful on the front end makes it go better and easier to accomplish by before the deadline. We also always want to work with the students who seem not to be on top of everything, to make sure that they are reminded of the resources and the fact that just getting one little bit of information can just empower them to know what can be a key to what it is that they can do to keep on going. And then the other part is that on the advice aspect, that there are different ways to study for different types of tests. And some of our students, would benefit from just hearing from somebody else how they do that. And since all of our tutors are currently enrolled students and have experience with the courses that they're tutoring, there's a lot of sharing that can go on between one or two students, or even more than one or two students, to get ideas about what somebody might try. Not that it's going to be easier, because that answer isn't it. It's what works best for the individual.
I really like what you said about, knowing how to study. There are different ways to study for different types of tests. So keeping that diversity of studying and test taking in mind, that's really good. And hopefully students will seek out that knowledge, because that's definitely going to help them, especially students that maybe have that test anxiety and they sit there with, they've taken notes. It's like, okay, I have my notes, but what do I do with this? I was one of those type of students, so I can definitely relate to that. So thank you so much for that that answer. That's really good. We have a parent who just submitted a question a couple of days ago. Their student is in the nursing school, and the program is pretty strict and rigid in the College of Nursing. She says the program will not allow the student to miss class, or they will fail the class, which can often produce high levels and unhealthy levels of stress in an already stressful program. So she wants to know what words of encouragement would support her students' success and morale.
So one of my favorite groups to work with is the nursing students, both the pre-nursing and the ones that are currently enrolled in nursing. And it sounds like this student is enrolled in nursing. And so the
Right.
first semester of nursing school is a big adjustment. It's a big deal. And so we're like halfway through the semester. And so some of the students have figured it out, and other of the students are still working on getting better before the end of the semester. But empathy with our young people is going to be so important, because you can probably recall something that you had to do. There was a big adjustment. You got to empathize a little bit. Say, I understand this is going to be a challenge, but you can do it, and we'll support you how you go. So what are some of the things that they do? Well, they have to have a plan, but their plan should start with self-care, and they want to stay well, because we know anxiety can cause somebody to feel really, really badly. And
Right.
so we would like to work with them on figuring out a schedule, to like study every day and have a study buddy, and really realize, why are they taking this particular nursing course? But I have something wonderful to offer to the parent. We actually have a tutor in my area that is a nursing student. And so I try to get them to work together, because they learn from each other. What works for one could work for the other. They need that internal support to also believe you can do it and we can do it together. Now, one of the things about the policies in any particular college, there is written policy for from so many places. And so if the parent would also want to ask their young person, there is called an LCON academic bulletin, and students have access to that on their website. And then there's also an LCON current student page that explains the policies. And the idea behind it is, and research supports this, and everything in nursing is taught based upon evidence. Well, the research across the university says when a student attends class, they're going to have a higher GPA than if they attend not as much or less than somebody else. And so we think that is important. But what I would say, both the student should do first and report back to the parent. The student should contact their advisor, who is either Alex or Angelicia, excuse me. And then the parent can also have an opportunity to ask questions, but it has to kind of go through the process. So start with the advisor, and then the advisor will also say whom else that they could include in the conversation with the parent. But much as anything, I want to start with parent, whomever you are, please, if you'd like to let me know who your student is. I would tell them the schedule for the nursing student that is here, because I would really like them to be so confident that they're going to finish this semester strong, because next semester is going to be a lot more. But I need a good nurse maybe pretty soon, okay? And I want
I want good nurses too. That's good.
And I want your student to be my best nurse I've ever could have expected.
That's good. So, on that note, I would say if you wouldn't mind, maybe putting your contact information in the chat. That way they can, if any parents want to reach out to you with additional questions, or
Okay.
if that parent is listening, we can make sure that they get your contact information as well.
Absolutely. And it's in the website, and it might be further on this screen as well. It's just bbeckus@memphis.edu.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, let's see. Thank you so much, Dr. Marshall, for
Mhm.
there. So another question, and we've got just a couple of more questions. Can current students, you said that all of your tutors are current students, so they can be hired. What is the criteria, and how would a student go about becoming a tutor in ESP?
We tell students every time we see you at the Learning Center, you're interviewing for a job. And just today, I've told 2 students, I said, you know what? You're going to be back for a tutoring job, right? And they, because they were here studying for an exam and they knew how that was going. And so the hiring process depends upon what the learning centers need. It depends upon the student who is applying and what courses that they have had. And it then depends upon how those 2 factors kind of fit together. When the student, though, might be a freshman, we recommend that they apply for a job through Peer Power, which is highly respected at this university and goes back into high schools and middle schools, and have block scheduling, and they pay better than we do. Okay, and so it's a good advantage for them to ask about that, because and then when they leave Peer Power, they can come and, have a strong background to work with us. But we really look forward to students who have had the courses, both the one before and the one after that they'd probably be tutoring, and then they've earned an A or a B in those courses, because that represents effort on the part of the learner, the student, which is very, very important to the ones who are coming in to work with at our locations.
Perfect. We have a parent who has asked a question in the chat. My student just started the biomedical engineering program. How can I encourage him to have a study buddy? Sometimes students want to be independent, and they may not see the benefit in having someone to study with.
number of our tutors, and I like biomedical engineering students as tutors because they have such a wide range of topics that they can cover. But I would just encourage your young person to be in touch with us, because we could probably connect them to a biomedical student who's actually ready to be a tutor, a mentor, a study buddy. Now, we use that word study buddy in a little different way, maybe. You could have a study buddy with a colleague or peer who's in the class. You could also have a study buddy who's already had the class. And that is very, very important too. And biomedical students have a lot of work to do. Time is so filled for them. And we would like very much, would you tell your student that they could become a tutor with us, but they got to come meet me first?
There you have it. Have them come meet Dr. Beckett, and hey, they could be a tutor and also be paired with someone in their field, in their study area. So I think that's very good, good connection to have right there.
Mm-hmm.
So we are winding down our time, and I've got one more question, and it's kind of a general question for Dr. Beckett and Dr. Marshall. So overall, what skills does my student need to have to be successful in class?
So I think as Dr. Beck has mentioned before, it does depend on what your student is studying, what courses they're taking, what subject area they are working on. So I would say the number one thing that they can do to do better in their courses and be successful is to come to our learning centers. We have data from the Office of Institutional Research that shows that students who come to our learning centers 6 or more times a semester actually earn a GPA that's about 10% higher than students who do not come to our learning centers at all. So that's pretty significant. That's the difference between graduating with a 3.0 or higher and graduating with less than that, which makes a big difference when you're applying for graduate schools, or when you're applying to professional schools, or when you're applying for jobs afterwards. So we definitely encourage students to come. There's, how many weeks are there in a semester? Coming 6 times means they don't even have to come every week, maybe every other week, maybe every couple weeks, depending on the scheduling. But they don't have to be here every single day to really benefit from our services. So I will say that, and I'll just add, in general, your student should have a textbook for their course and use their textbook, whether that is for reading material for their course, if it's more of a general humanities course or something like that, or doing the extra practice problems in their book, if it's a math course or a science course or something like that. They should go to class, every class, unless they're ill. They should be in class. And they should really use their syllabi for their courses. At the beginning of every course, the professors are required to give them a syllabus that tells them the course objectives, the schedule of their reading assignments, their tests, their quizzes. All those things should be in there. What the purpose of the class is. It has the instructor's contact information, their office hours. So if your student has not looked at their syllabi, that's a really, really good place to start. And that will be a kind of guide for them to how to be successful in that course.
And may I add that it's very important that your student has a personal motivation to do well in the course. And that needs to be something, it's their decision to be in that major, in that course, not somebody else's. And then they have to have a really strong desire to do better, because what we do well today, we can do something else better tomorrow. And so that's the way we grow, and that's the way we develop. And then another important thing is that no matter what is assigned, no matter what course they're in, no matter what they're doing, a student must understand why is this required? Why is this important? Because when we can know the why of something, we'll figure out the what and the where and the when. But it has to be one of those self-motivational things. But we're all in a growth mode. It's like thinking about how's this going to apply to our future, And we are expecting great things from all of our students as far as their futures are concerned, as I'm sure the parents and the families are as well.
All right, this has been some wonderful, very good wisdom that you all have given our family members. I hope that everyone's questions have been answered, and of course, you have Dr. Beckis's and Dr. Marshall's contact information. Feel free to email them at any time. Visit their website. Is it memphis.u/ESP? Can I get to it that way?
Yes.
Okay, so that is all the questions that we have for today and all the time we have. I want to thank Dr. Beckis and Dr. Marshall for coming and imparting so much great wisdom and advice for our parents and family members. I do have a couple of announcements. So our fall final care packages are on sale now, so you can go to the Parent and Family Services website if you would like to purchase one for your student if you didn't get a chance to do the bundle earlier this semester, and you have until November 12th to get your student a finals care package. And that's just another way that you can support them through final exams, which can be a pretty stressful time, but something to kind of like a pick me up for them, a special treat with a little note even from you and your family members encouraging them. And also our next Tiger Talk topic, that's a little tongue twister there, helping your student navigate the new FAFSA changes that are coming up. We'll talk about financial aid and scholarships, and we're working with the financial aid office right now to pin down a date. We're waiting on the federal government to say when they're going to release the new FAFSA. They've done a complete overhaul of the FAFSA application, and it's going to affect both current students and incoming students. And so we want to make sure that family members have all the information they need and can get their questions answered before that FAFSA comes out. So we'll be communicating that on our social media, on our website when we get that date pinned down in December. So I'm working on it. It's coming soon, but I did want to let you know that it's coming and what we're going to be talking about. Thank everyone for attending. That ends our Tiger Talk. You can catch this at 5 p.m. tonight Central Time on YouTube. We'll premiere the recording, and then you can also catch it at any time after that on our YouTube channel on demand. You can email us at any time if you have questions or need to know where to go for what resource or how to help your student. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram and also Twitter, which is now X. So make sure you're following us on social media so that you can be updated on the latest and greatest coming from Parent and Family Services. Until our next Tiger Talk, thank everybody for coming, and that ends our session. Have a great day.